I was going to not forget to go to the slide when we sang the song so that you guys could see the words. So Stacie Sheldon, Chitwa Dwegekwe, Anishinaabemowen, Indabendagos, Mishinamaganago, Asiginaak-Negamojig, Sheboygan, Michigan, and Donjaba, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Ninda. So my name is Stacie Sheldon, or Chitwa Dwegekwe. That means honor be woman. I'm from the Mackinac Band of Chippewa and Ottawa Indians. I'm Crane Clan. And I'm originally from Sheboygan, Michigan, and I now live in Ann Arbor. So do you guys want to try saying hi to me? That's Ani. Or you can also say Buju. Nice. So I want to say thank you, Miigwech, to the library for having us here today and for everybody who came out on a beautiful late summer day. So our languages, they're embedded in everything that we do, in the way that we live our lives, in the way that we talk, in our beliefs, the way that we think. And today we're going to share some about our language. We're going to share some songs and have you hopefully sing a song with us. And we're going to save time at the end for some questions and answers if you guys have those. But I'm going to start with asking the group to introduce themselves.
Oh, it's good. Yeah. Ani, Buju. Andrew Wilkerson, Anishinaabemowen, Aamjinan First Nation, Indabendagos, Rochester and Donjaba, Ann Arbor, Ninda. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Wilkerson. I belong to Aamjinan First Nation in Sarnia, Ontario. I'm originally from Rochester, and I live in Ann Arbor now.
Anishinaabemowen, Linda Purchase. Anishinaabemowen, 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 Enda, Portage Lake, Pinckney, Michigan. Donjaba, Lac du Flambeau, Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians, and Mi'kmaq is my clan in Dodom. Oh, I should finish. Well, I better interpret all this. My name is Linda Purchase. English is my first language. And my name is Linda Purchase. My given name, my Anishinaabemowen name is Bashka-Bogwoni. It means sprouting one. I live in Portage Lake in Pinckney, Michigan. My clan is the Turtle Clan, and I'm a descendant from ancestors on the reservation in Lac du Flambeau, northern Wisconsin, and they're members of the Lake Superior Chippewa Band of Indians.
Buju, Rebecca Anishinaabemowen, Bawating Indabendagos, Asiginaak-Negamojig, Whitmore Lake, Inda. My name is Rebecca. I live in Whitmore Lake. I am from the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians, and I am Crane Clan.
Hannah Rausch, Anishinaabemowen, Anishinaabemowen, Ndau, Ann Arbor, and Donjaba, and Pittsfield Township, Nda. So my name is Anna Rausch. I'm Anishinaabe. I live in Pittsfield Township, but I am from Ann Arbor.
Linnea Rausch, Anishinaabemowen, Anishinaabemowen, Ndau, Ann Arbor and Donjaba, Pittsfield Township, Nda. My name is Linnea Rausch. I'm Anishinaabe. I'm from Ann Arbor and live in Pittsfield Township.
Bonjour, Selena Smith, Anishinaabemowen, Utpamswak Métis Kwe, Indo, Stony Plain, Alberta, Nandunjaba, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Ninda. So my name is Selena. I'm Utpamswak Métis, and I'm originally from Alberta, and now live here in Ann Arbor.
Ani, Megan Sinandra Anishinaabemowen, Makwani Nodum, Bawating, Ninda Vendagos, Howell, Michigan, Ndojaba, Saline, Michigan, Ninda. So, hello everyone, my name is Megan St. Andrew. I belong to the Bear Clan. I am also enrolled in the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. Sault Ste. Marie in Anishinaabemowen is Bawating. And I'm from Howell, and I currently live in Saline.
Bonjour, Ariel Ojibwe Anishinaabemowen, Bawating Ninabandagos, Asiginaak-Negamojig, Lansing and Dujaba, and Ipsi Inda. I'm Ariel Ojibwe, she, hers, and I'm from Lansing and live in Ypsilanti. My tribe is the Sault Ste. Marie tribe, and I am Crane Clan.
Ani, Cherry Anishinaabemowen, Nandawa Bawating Ojibwe, Manton and Dojaba, Ann Arbor Ninda. So my name is Cherry, and I am also from the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. I am from Manton, but I currently live in Ann Arbor.
Bonjour, Christy Fig, Indijakaz, Anishinaabemowen, Mi'kmaq Pinckney, Michigan, Inda. My name is Christy Fig. I'm an Anishinaabe woman. I am of the Turtle Clan, and I currently live in Pinckney, Michigan. And Bosh, Linda, is my mother.
So this is the traditional Ojibwe greeting protocol or introduction protocol. So we introduce ourselves by telling and retelling our place in the world. So we're not just telling our names, but we're stating our connections to others and to place. So it's the circle that travels outward, right, that recognizes our ties and how we connect to others. And I included this image that you can see. This is a birch bark scroll. It was created in the year 1849. It was taken by Chief Oshkabewis to Washington, D.C. to plead for a look at what was happening with the treaty up in the La Pointe area. And you can see that 7 chiefs signed this. There's 7 clan symbols on here. So there's the Crane clan in the front, and then you can see those 3 yellow creatures. Those are the martins. And there's a bear, and then a merman, and then the last one there is the bullhead, a fish. So you can see that there's also on this scroll these lines that are connecting the hearts and then the minds to one another, and also to that blue bar, that's Lake Superior. And that lakes, small lakes underneath of it is meant to represent the watershed. So these lines, they mean that those chiefs agree, that people agree, they're united. They share the same outlook, the same perspective. So we're gonna hope for, we've brought our shared connection of hearts and minds to share with you today, along with our voices. Maybe I didn't push the button good enough. Oops. No, I pushed it too much. I find that there's generally a lot of confusion about Native Americans in Michigan. I think just because there's different names and different terms that people hear, so I thought it might be nice to ground all of us today. So the fires got moved somehow here, but the Ojibwe are one of the 3 fires confederacy, which is 3 major groups of people. There's the Ojibwe, which many of us are, but we're also called the Chippewa. And one story that I've heard that I think makes sense is that first the French were here, and they called us the Ojibwa, and that term was related to the kind of moccasins that we had, which you can see on here, which is a pucker toe style moccasin. The English came later and they said, what did you call these people? They said, the Ojibwa. They said, okay, good, we'll call them the Chippewa. So there's some similarity in the terms here. Most of us use the word Ojibwe, but the word Chippewa is the title of our tribes, and it's in our treaty documents, so it's not going anywhere. And then you'll see the Odawa, also called the Ottawa, and the Bodway-Otomi, also called the Potawatomi. Those ones are probably less confusing because their names are more similar. But in this area of the world, if we go back to the Treaty of Greenville in 1795, All of the people, all the native people in the Great Lakes region identified themselves as the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. And they shared a common language that they all understood that supported that peace. And the Three Fires at this time then, they were political groups, linguistic groups, social groups. And that went on for a very long time until the Indian Removal Act and the reservation era. So things started to change. People were living on insular communities, and so the languages started to change and get different from each other. The Potawatomi were removed to Kansas and Oklahoma out of southeast Michigan. Their language became even more different. So today we still call ourselves Anishinaabe people. You'll hear that term. But there have become 3 ethnic groups, where before they were just social, political, and linguistic groups. So now that we identify as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. Our territory is huge. We're talking Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ontario, parts of Alberta, and nowadays in Kansas and Oklahoma. I'm not gonna fall for it this time, I'm gonna wait, okay. To show you some of that territory, this is a map that I helped create a few years ago, and it shows the current diaspora of Anishinaabe nations. So right now, 2024, all those teal dots are sovereign nations. There's about 150 of them. And one of the ideas behind this map was so that tribes could connect themselves to the Great Lakes watershed and help form alliances to protect water. But it kind of became more than that. We called it Inwe Mazanaigan, which means the map of our sound. And the map, which is interactive, it has the names in our language of the tribes where possible, so you could click on it and hear it being said. I think when we were talking about how we introduce ourselves, we were saying that knowing one's place in the universe is to know one's name, and vice versa. Knowing your name means to know your place in the universe. And names reveal the history of a place, and they give us a way to understand our relationships with things like water, with land, with other beings. And you can see how all these teal dots were concentrated mostly around the Great Lakes watershed, which is in black. And the Anishinaabe word for town is Odena, and that word, inherent in the word, is a confluence or an exchange, rather than like a buildup of people or buildings. So, and the word also contains, Odena contains Ode, which means heart. So it's not surprising that many of our most diverse urban centers are located in bays and on shorelines and at the confluence of rivers. And I know it's hard to see on here. If you go to the actual website, you can zoom around. But just looking at this map, you can see where Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, Sault Ste. Marie, Canada, that was all Anishinaabe people. They put a big border right in the middle of our people. But before it was called Sault Ste. Marie, like Megan said, it was called Bawating, the place of the rapids. You can also see Wawayatanong, which means where one goes around, or where the water goes around, now called Detroit. You can also see Jigagong, now known as Chicago. It was named by the Anishinaabe people for all the skunk cabbage that grows there that smells like a shigak, a skunk. And then Milwaukee, it was called Minowaki, the good land. And Milwaukee didn't get changed to Milwaukee until sometime in the 1800s. And then all of this water, the Great Lakes, it was recognized as a vast sea that we called Michigame. And you can see about all these teal dots, right, how this came to be our ancestral home. So this is the home of our language. Instant now. So the Great Lakes watershed is where we are connected as Ojibwe people to the land and to the water. And we're going to sing a song that was written for the watershed. And this is a song that honors some of the not just the most important fish, but some of the fish. A fish that's not included in the song is the suckerfish. And one of my favorite stories is that there was times when people were hungry, especially in late winter, like around February. And the suckerfish decided that they wanted to care for the Anishinaabe people. So they started to swim up underneath the ice, and they sacrificed themselves so the Anishinaabe people would live. So in February, we call that Nemebenegizis, the suckerfish moon. And for those of you who fish, you'll know that the suckerfish are one of the only fish that will swim up to the ice in the wintertime, while all the other fish are staying low. So this is a song, though, that's not for the fisher people. This is a song for the fish, for the muskies that lurk, and those deep story sturgeons, and the ones that we share the water with. These are the fish that sacrifice themselves so that people might eat. These are the ones who might once have heard, Gimigwechigo, ga bagadendazoyan. Thank you for the sacrifice of yourself. So there's another connection that the language teaches us about this place in the world. And there's something in speech, like not just Ojibwe, but many languages, called a morpheme, which is just a sound that has meaning. And this one is a fun one in Ojibwe to think about. So I want to see if we can identify all three of our relatives on this slide. And let's start with the gawk. Who knows what the gawk is? Porcupine, good job. And then the gawandak. Who knows what that is? I heard white spruce. Good job. And then sometimes this is the hard one. Who knows what the oga? Do you guys recognize the oga? It's especially delicious. Oh, more delicious than a whitefish. Voila, all right. So that term ga, that means to be prickly. So the gawk is the porcupine, it has those needles, and then the gawandak, those pine needles, and then the walleye has that first dorsal fin that has all of the tines or spines on it. You could also say a person is gawa, which means to be prickly, or they're gawe, which is jealous. And I have one more of these. There's a lot of words in our language that have de, the morpheme de. And de means heart or center. And we talked about odena, and we talked about ode earlier. But the heart, the ode, is the center of the human body. And the odemen, the strawberry, is a heart-shaped fruit. And if you look at a strawberry plant, it has all those runners and tendrils, just like the human body has arteries and veins. And so odemen actually translate as heartberry. And Odina, right, is the center, a village is the center of the people. And the Dweagan, we think of the drum as the heartbeat of the people. And then Dodim, when you put the do, which means to nurture, with the de, the heart, you have the heart of a person's spiritual identity, which is why many of us shared our clans with you earlier. But all these things are linked by the sound de, and so now you know that they are all connected to the heart. Oops, I never clicked the button. Yell at me, you guys. I think I clicked it too many times now. I'm a really terrible clicker. It's not going. Oh, there we go. Stay there? Okay. So we talked about water, and water is one part of our cosmos, and the stars are another. So for example, if we all think right now about the direction that's north, does anybody know where north is? You're a library staff. Yes, that way. So Giwaden is the word for north, and it has embedded in it the word for going home, which is Giwe. And in this part of the world, right, the word for north and the idea of going home, those are the same things. And the star that tells you how to return is the home star, the North Star, Gwaednong. And the word for east, that's Waban. And it has embedded in it the word wap, to see. So our eyes, in order to see, right, they need light. And the light that comes with the day in order to see comes from the east. And then Jawan, this is a word that invokes heat, something that we recognize in this place, right, that comes from the south. And then Ningambian, that means west, and that word implies melting. So the day melting into night, kind of a gentle transitions, those beautiful sunsets. You know, every place in the world has connections to language, and our languages teach us those connections. And sometimes in Ojibwe, a word has a whole story in it. For example, we have a story about a bird who had feathers of every color in the rainbow. So bright, conspicuous, glorious feathers. He also had the most beautiful song, like the most beautiful singing voice of all of the birds. And it was enchanting, and all of the creatures on the earth admired this bird. And the Anishinaabe people admired this bird most of all. And the bird loved all the people back, but it especially loved the Anishinaabe people. And then one winter, it was terribly cold. The people were suffering. They couldn't, what food they could find was so frozen, they couldn't eat it. They had no fire, no way to cook their food, no way to warm their lodges. And this bird, it took pity on the people and resolved to help them. So he flew up into the sky, higher and higher, and he wanted to approach the sun and bring back its warmth for the people. And he flew for a long time until he was close enough where he could really feel the heat of the sun. But soon it grew so hot that it started to singe his beautiful feathers. But he didn't turn back. He didn't quit. He flew and he flew until he reached the sun, and his feathers were burned black, and his throat was seared by the heat, but he made it. And he retrieved the fire, and he brought it back to earth, and he gave it to the people. Now the people had something to cook their food and to warm their lodges, and they were so grateful. But the bird never recovered his former glory from his sacrificial ordeal. But he did live. And we call this bird Ondeg, which means he or she changes in the light. In English, he is known as the crow. His feathers are black as charcoal. His voice is rough and raspy. But when the sun shines on him, there's a glint of those multiple colors in his dark feathers, a hint of his former glory. And when we speak Ojibwe and we say this word andek, this one word, it invokes this whole story. So since we're talking about birds, we wanted to share about another bird. So our state bird in Michigan is, who knows what the state bird in Michigan is? The robin. We think of it as the bird that heralds in springtime. But I think the chickadee should be our state bird. You know, it stays with us all winter. It never leaves, and it reminds us then of surviving, like who has survived. And we have this song that's, the word chickadee, by the way, gidja gidja ganeshi, sounds like the call of a chickadee. So the name of the bird sounds like the sound that it makes. And this is a song that's actually based on their actual call. So the sound that they make when they identify each other, when they call to each other. Anikobichikanan, Anikobitowan, Lingash, Windermoyankidwa, Gash Kibjik, Gekash Keaking, Kichikaneshi, Eagrawandak, Non Dagasit, Non Dendemiyankidwa, Yanado Keyang, Manido Yang, Anikobichikanan, Anikobitowan, Wingash, Windermoyankidwa, Gash Kibjik, Gekash Keaking, Kichikaneshi, Eagrawandak, Non Dagasit, Non Dendemiyankidwa, Manido Keyang, Manido Yang, Anikobichikanan, Anikobitowan, Wingash, Windermoyankidwa, Gash Kibjik, Gekash Keaking, Kichikaneshi, Eagrawandak, Non Dagasit, Non Dendemiyankidwa, Manido Keyang, Manido Yang, Anikobichikanan, Anikobitowan, Wingash, Windermoyankidwa, Gash Kibjik, Gekash Keaking, Kichikaneshi, Eagrawandak, Non Dagasit, Non Dendemiyankidwa, Manido Keyang, Manido Yang. So we'd love to hear all of you say Gidja Gidja Ganeshi. So if you guys want to say Gidja, Gidja, Ga, Ne, Shi. Gidja, Gidja, Ga, Ne, Shi. Gidja Gidja, Ga Ne, Shi. Gidja Gidja Ga. Neshi. Gidja Gidja Ganeshi. It's easier if you sing it. Gidja Gidja Ganeshi. Gidja Gidja Ganeshi. Gidja Gidja Ganeshi. You guys sound fantastic. So we shared some special things about our language, but I think it's important to note that it is endangered. It's not alone. At the time of European contact, it's believed that there are about 300 indigenous languages spoken here, and right now about 167 of those remain. We believe that with COVID, we lost about 20% of our fluent speakers. And only 20 of these languages are expected to survive the next 25 years. And I have a fun statistic on here. It says, Navajo is the most spoken. Like there's 30,000 Navajo people? But even then, they don't make it into the top 25 languages spoken in the United States. But don't be sad. Oh, there goes my dramatic moment. There we go. So on our minds, right, is how do we save our language? And we save it by using it, by creating with it, by talking in it, by talking about it, by singing in it. And earlier I said that our languages are embedded in everything that we do, in the way that we are living our lives, the way that we're talking to ourselves, our beliefs. And the Ojibwe language teaches us a lot of beautiful things about how to live in this world, in the Great Lakes watershed, and how to live with one another. And we do know that something very special would be lost if our language was lost. But like the chickadee, we are survivors, we are resilient, and there are so many people doing great work. So just recently, in the last couple of weeks, Star Wars in Ojibwe just came out. So that's exciting. You can see that in some places. There's more and more books. You can find Ojibwe on TikTok, I'm sure. And then, the library had us here today, which is pretty special. I want to talk about some of the other work that we're doing. Someday I'm going to get the hang of this button. Oh, I think I pointed in the right place. So for myself, I work in tech. You can't tell. But over the course of the years, I have found ways to contribute to language revitalization using the skills that I have in the digital realm as well as in the physical realm. So back in 2006, my friend Margaret and I started this website, sort of inadvertently, really, but we started a website called Ojibwe.net. And its goal is to support language revitalization. And Megan St. Andrew, she recently joined our team, maybe a little over a year ago. So we work with communities and organizations and people who want to use the language in addition to providing, we have a curriculum of lessons and some other materials. And it has really started off small and it's become bigger and bigger. And I wanted to share a couple of our projects in the physical world. Whoa, whoops. Now I get carried away. So this fish poster, you can find this on Ojibwe.net. It started off with the Grand Portage tribe up on Lake Superior, wanted to have a poster of some of their fish with the names in Ojibwe. And I'm from Sheboygan, so I was like, I want a poster of Sheboygan, with Sheboygan's fish. And there's this, if you ever get the chance to go to Sheboygan, it has a really amazing children's trail on the river. And they installed our fish poster on the children's trail. So I was up there a few weeks ago and I took this picture. And you guys are too far away to look to see the names of the fish, but there's some fun lessons, I guess, about the fish and the names of them. So earlier in the fish song, you might have saw that we said Name for the sturgeon. So Name is the name of that sturgeon, and it's in a bunch of the fish names. And Name actually means to be longer than you are wide. So, accurate description of many fish. And then the whitefish, which we call Adigimik, it has a dorsal fin that looks kind of like the tine of a fork or the tine of a caribou. So it's actually called the caribou fish, the Adigimik. And then the Ojibwe people called the muskellong, the muskie, the mashkinoje, that was in our song. And then the ginoje is the pike, and they look really similar to one another. And both of their names, those words, they mean to have a long snout. But the mashkinoje, the muskie, also has ugly on there. So it's an ugly fish with a long snout. So sometimes the language teaches us funny things. And then if anybody has a chance to go over to the University of Michigan Museum of Art, to UMA, there's currently, I think it's still there, an installation called Future Cache. And there's a 40-foot wall that has the story of the Burt Lake Band and how they were burned out of their village in the year 1900. And I always feels good when I go there because it has those big letters that says, "You are on Anishinaabe land." So that exhibit has QR codes that you can scan, and you can listen to the story and see the words in Ojibwe. The fish poster also has QR code. So just a couple of examples of stuff that we do. And then a few years ago, I wrote a children's book, or story about my dog Nimki. Nimki was one of those cool, once-in-a-lifetime dogs. And we had great times, great adventures together. And the story is organized by seasons, and it's a published bilingual illustrated children's books. We don't actually have a lot of either bilingual or monolingual books in Ojibwe. So that was something that I wanted to help with. You know, I never aspired to be an author, but I learned a lot about reading with children with my cousins and nieces and nephews, and tried to bring those to the book. And the Ann Arbor Library has just added the Nimki book to their catalog. So that's exciting for me. Now I wanted to share with you one of my favorite parts of the book. So this is a starry night that I squeezed on this slide. And I know you can't read it, but it says, the book, by the way, is just beautifully, the illustrations are really beautiful. It says, Nimki Omo, by the way, I didn't do the illustrations. I have a friend named Rachel Butson who did them. So Nimki Omowendan, Gana Wabma Anongon Bibung. Nimki likes to look at the stars in winter. O Wabman Wenabuju Anongon Gai Maingan Anongon. She sees the Wenabuju constellation and the wolf constellation. Nimki Nagamo. E paskakano said, agashin anongons, agashin anongons. She sings Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Gira wind na nagamoyan. Do you want to sing? And then if you go to ojibwe.net, you can learn how to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star with Nimki. So now it's time for you all to help us with our language revitalization. We're going to teach you a song called Shkakamekwe. So Shkakamekwe is one of the words for Mother Earth. So, you know, like I told you guys, Ojibwe territory is huge, right? And it's not a monolithic culture. People have different words, they have different teachings. So some people say Shkakamekwe for Mother Earth. So let's try that one out. So Shka, Ka, Mik, Kwe. Shka Ka, Mik, We. Shka Ka, Mik, We. Shka Ka, Mik, We. Nice, you guys nailed it. The other word for Mother Earth, Mazikamekwe. Ma, Zi, Ka, Mikwe. Mazika. Mikwe. Mazika Mikwe. So I'll show you guys the song. Whoops. You can see the words on here. We'll go over a couple of those. So Shkakamekwe. Let's see how that sounds. You guys are strangely good at this. Mazikamekwe. And then we'll say Gidanasak. Bimosewak. Giwedenong. Wabanong. Jawanong. Epongishimak. And that's all the words. We're going to sing it 4 times, and I want you guys just to try to sing it with us. Just come in wherever you can with whatever words that you can. We'll be looking to hear your voices. Much ta-da. Nishin. That means good. You guys did a great job. So we do want to have people to have an opportunity to ask some questions, and then we're going to sing the traveling song, and we'll have the words up. But a traveling song is something to see us on our way in a good way, so we'll close with that. But for now, if anybody has any questions, we would love to hear them. Are you going to help us? All right.
I will pass this around, so if you have a question, you can raise your hand, and I will bring this to you.
How long have you been speaking the language?
Since 2006, when I started Ojibwe.net. Ojibwe.net actually started with, it was harder in 2006 to find Ojibwe learning materials. Just so you guys know, it was a felony to teach or publish in Ojibwe until the year 1990. So our first dictionary came out in 1991. And that was the policy, right, a part of removal. So it was hard in 2006 even to find material. So my friend and I, every time we would like, hey, I went to a thing and I got a worksheet, let's put it online. So it really started off as a file repository, and then it built itself into something that houses lessons and songs and materials.
If I noticed accurately that morpheme ga for prickly was in the name of the chickadee, if that is accurate, is that because of like the chickadee beak, or is there a different understanding in Anishinaabe about the prickly part of a chickadee?
That morpheme ga shows up in a lot of words, and it doesn't always mean prickly. Like it's also used in a way to say like a place where things always happened. You'll say ga, and in the part of the chickadee, it doesn't reference that same meaning. But that's a tremendous eye that you have. She's the eye of the migaze, the eagle.
Hi, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about your ribbon skirts and also about the design of your logo. And are you guys an organized choir, or could you speak a little bit about how you all come together, because you come from such different dispersed space? Thank you.
Okay, let's start with this group, Asiginaak-Negamojig. I think we've been together about a year now. I started this group about a year. There was a different drum group for a long time called the Swamp Singers, and it sort of fizzled out, and I wanted to start a new group, and I wanted it to sort of be like a cousin or related. So I was really thinking about that marsh, the swamp, the place of the medicine. And so we thought about that red-winged blackbird that has such a distinctive voice, and it protects its nest so fiercely. And in language revitalization, not just for Ojibwe, but for other endangered languages, communities form what's called a language nest. So we call it the Wadiswan as our nest. So we get together, usually about every other week, to work on learning the language together, teaching the language, we make worksheets and materials that we can share with different communities. And then this group came out of that nest. And we did have, so Megan's sister, Keely, she's obviously from Sault Ste. Marie tribe too. She was interested in doing artwork, and I was like, hey, how about a logo? So we worked together on that, and it turned out, I think, pretty fantastically. If you guys remember the clan symbol, the birch bark scroll with the hearts, we kind of use that same representation that we're sharing from our hearts. It was in the Blackbird.
Oh, and the skirts?
Oh, the skirts, sorry. I feel like ribbon skirts are something that was used often in ceremonies, but not really. And other people, anybody here has a different perspective. In the last few years, I would say even since the George Floyd events, there's been more of a focus on things like missing murdered Indigenous women and other initiatives, or finding the children who are buried at residential schools, both in Canada and in the United States. And these ribbon skirts have come to feel like a way to show up united and with beauty and with strength, and they've just become like something we all want to wear when we go do special things. Does anybody have anything they want to?
Could you talk a little bit about the efforts by various bands, the Mackinac included, to be established at a federal level, and what it means for the bands, and where that effort stands, at least in terms of the Anishinaabe peoples?
At this moment in time, there's 3 state historic tribes: the Mackinac Band, the Burt Lake Band, and the Nottawasepi. The Nottawasepi were Potawatomi in this area, and what happened was when they were removed, I don't remember which, to Kansas or Oklahoma, but one or the other, some of them escaped and they came back. And they lived on the Huron River Valley, or the Huron River watershed, and they are working to reestablish themselves and to seek federal recognition. The Burt Lake Band had an opportunity for federal recognition previously, but didn't want to join with a bigger group. They wanted to be their own group. Same with the Mackinac Band. So those tribes are both in the process, which is incredibly lengthy and incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive, to become federally recognized.
So I had 2 questions. First of all, I think in the poem that not the poem, but one of the song that you mentioned, where I don't remember the exact song, but it was about the West, coming from the West or going to the West. Over there, it was more of a descriptive word compared to the one that you showed us earlier, defining West. So within the language or within the family of languages, do you tend to keep words as more descriptive, or do they eventually evolve into actual words that have roots but don't directly define or describe the thing?
That process that you're describing is something that I think of as, and I'm probably really the wrong person to answer this because I'm not a linguist, but I think I know somebody in my group who is one. But yeah, I feel like when we speak English, we don't often know where the words come from, but there are people who study that who do really know, like, this word is derived. Ojibwe, though, is a living language, and you can create words, and there's not just necessarily one right way to say things. I don't know that there would be a situation where there'd be a word that you don't know what it meant.
So I would also say that the reason, or one of the many reasons that words can be so descriptive in Ojibwe actually has to do with the structure of the language. So languages can be structured in many different ways. In some languages, Stacie talked about morphemes earlier, and morphemes are like the smallest part of a word that has any meaning. So sometimes it's one letter, sometimes it's a syllable or a couple letters, a couple sounds together. In Ojibwe, words are made up of lots and lots and lots of those tiny morphemes. So words can get very long and very descriptive, whereas in some other languages, words tend to be very short. And there can be a lot of words to make up a sentence, whereas in Ojibwe, you can have one really long word that's actually one sentence. So the languages are structured differently, and so Ojibwe builds words in a different way, and it has the effect that when you translate it to English, it sounds very descriptive, because in English, we would just use a sentence to say the thing, but in Ojibwe, we can actually make that a word. So the languages are structured differently, English versus Ojibwe. They build words differently, and Ojibwe therefore seems to be very descriptive when we translate into English.
Also, I think I missed the first part of the session. So is there a way we can access the slides later on?
You can go to ojibwe.net, is that what you mean?
So are the slides on ojibwe.net?
Oh, the slides.
Yeah, the slides.
Oh, I guess I could talk to Tam, our event person, to see if there's a way to make the slides accessible to people after the event. That's
Thank you.
Possible, right? She's going to check into it. And I'm just really thankful that I have a linguist in my drum group. Any other questions? Great questions, too. All right, let's all go about our days in a good way. Let's sing the traveling song together.